Hi everyone, welcome back to the training on Microsoft Azure AZ900. So, in the last couple of sections, of course, we have talked about identity and then we have talked about governance. And in this section, we are going to talk about privacy and compliance. Now, I'm going to give you a caveat here to say that, in different areas of this course, of course, this is AZ900, right? It is supposed to be an overview of the fundamentals of Azure. And some of it is quite practical, as we saw in the Azure policy and the Azure blueprint section. And some of it is a quite a bit higher level. And so we are going to get into some privacy and compliance topics here, where it's a bit higher level. Microsoft has this concept called the trusted cloud, right? The trusted cloud is made up of the following five components. So we have to think about the security, privacy, compliance, resiliency, which means it's not going to go down, right? It's going to be always available and protecting intellectual property. So those five together make up the trusted cloud. If we look at those individually, we are going to see security now. Microsoft Azure is built with security in mind, so they don't go and release new features without thinking about the security implications. This is a part is backed in, right, as they say, and they want to make sure that you as a customer has those tools and technologies available as well to protect your own applications and data. And they make sure that you customers, you in the sense, we customers have those tools and technology available for us to protect our own data and applications. And if you remember, the division of responsibilities between Microsoft Azure and the clients that run on top of it, the applications and data is always going to be your responsibility. Right? And so they want to make sure that you have things that you can use to manage your company's security, or your own security, right? Encryption seems to be backed in, right? According to it, and encryption seems to be backed in. So now all the virtual machines have encryption enabled. All the storage accounts are encryption available. Enabled with encryption. You can even turn these things off, right? So Azure is built around the encryption of customers' data, and they also have been rolling out over the years advanced threat detection and tools to detect these threats and protect against it, right? The second tenet of this is the privacy element. So the data is your data, right? Microsoft's never going to peek at your data, right? Or they are not going to use your data against you, etc. Right? That's why it's encrypted, and you have the ability to manage the security keys for your own storage, etc. They are not going to mine the data, right? If you put in the data in Azure, they're not going to mine the data and use it for marketing as well. You also have location control, right? We know that in the age of GDPR and various privacy laws around the world, that the location of the data is very important. So you can basically specify my data is located in this region and it shall never leave the geography boundary. It will do it for you, right? You can access your own data at any time, right? There is published information on how Microsoft responds to government requests, right? So if the FBI was to ever want some information, they have to follow a particular process. And if you decide to discontinue your service, then they're not going to hang on to your data forever, right? there is a policy to follow there as well, right? The third tenet of security, the third tenet of trust policy is compliance. So there are international standards that follow, right? I mean, we can see them published, right? We'll talk about that in a second. There's compliance certifications, right? So Microsoft not only follows standards, but they publish which ones they follow, and sometimes they get audited for following certain standards. There's regional standards as well, and they provide tools so that if you want to follow standards in your industry, so let's say you are in healthcare sector and you need to follow healthcare standards, in that case Microsoft is going to provide you, right? HIPPA, that is HIPAA. There are 35 industries that are covered that you can then have Microsoft help you meet to meet those standards, right? So Microsoft is going to help in all around. The fourth area was is resiliency, which typically means you have got backups and disaster recovery, and that it's high availability, right? The ability not only to use your application in the highly available way, but the underlying, of course, the underlying Microsoft Azure framework and Fabric needs to also be highly available, right? So downtime becomes a rare thing. And the last one, which we are going to talk about, is those trust standards in protecting IP. So they're promising to you and testing to you that they are not going to steal your ideas and steal your code, right? They are not going to then launch a competing service exception for that, right? But are going to basically steal your IP in order to compete against it. They're not going to do all of this, right? There is protection for you against infringements, right? So let's say that somebody claims a patent within the Linux OS, right? So they're going to come after you because your applications are running Linux, right? Let's say someone in the world has come up with a patent, filed a patent for using Linux. You're also using Linux in Azure. Well, if your application runs in Linux within Azure or Microsoft, well, Microsoft will protect you from those patent claims when people are trying to get to you by using their services, right? And you can sort of follow up with things such as a shared initiative, right? That is it. That is the Azure Trust and the Cloud Initiative, right? In this section, we were talking about the concept within the Azure, privacy and compliance, right? So in the next section, we are going to continue talking about various privacy and trust and compliance related issues, right? Thank you, and I'll see you in the next one.